What if everything you were taught about the origin of sin was actually a facade covering the first act of liberation? Centuries-old texts from Nag Hammadi reveal Sophia as a divine rebel who crossed the boundary of cosmic order and made human freedom possible. Are you ready to recover the sovereign fire that exists within you? Hidden for millennia beneath Egyptian soil, a secret account of the divine feminine emerged to challenge our modern chains. Sophia did not simply fall into matter. In the interpretation we will examine, her movement created a breach in a rigid cosmic order through which human autonomy became possible. This is the untold story of our original rebellion. Stop living by a script written by institutions that require you to remain submissive and small. By tracing the spark associated with Sophia, we discover a hidden pattern of human sovereignty and the power to step beyond every earthly structure that claims ownership of consciousness. It is time to recover the inner flame from the rule of the demiurge. The provocative word rebel must be handled carefully. The secret book of John does not describe Sophia as a modern political revolutionary. It says that she conceived a thought from herself without the approval of the invisible spirit and without her partner. Her action produces a being who lacks knowledge of the higher realm. In some Valentinian accounts, Sophia's passion and error are treated differently, and the lower wisdom may be distinguished from the higher Sophia. There is no single universal Gnostic biography. Yet, the myth preserves an unmistakable tension between obedience, creativity, error, and awakening. Sophia acts. Her action is incomplete and carries consequences, but it also creates the opening through which a lower world will eventually receive light. She is neither a flawless heroine nor the simple villain later moral imagination might prefer. The first concrete revelation is that curiosity is not condemned as such. The danger lies in creation without integration, power without knowledge of relation, and action separated from the whole. This is very different from saying that the feminine desire to know caused all evil. The myth can be read as a warning against isolated creation rather than against feminine agency. A marginalized wisdom becomes frightening to rigid systems because she does not fit the categories of innocent obedience or malicious rebellion. Sophia makes a mistake and remains divine. She suffers consequences and participates in restoration. She exposes a truth that controlling institutions often resist. An error can become the beginning of knowledge without becoming morally good in itself. And what I am about to reveal has layers that a single video cannot contain. For those who have been watching this channel and sensing that the fragments are pointing to something larger, the complete initiation exists. It is in the pinned comment. But stay with me now, because this next part changes everything. The architecture of control depends on simpler stories. Good people obey, bad people question. Authority defines the limits of legitimate curiosity. When a person steps outside the script, every negative consequence is presented as proof that the question itself was sinful. This keeps the system safe from examination. The myth of Sophia interrupts that architecture. If divine wisdom can move, err, repent, and participate in correction, then consciousness is not defined by static perfection. Growth becomes part of the cosmic drama. The universe of the myth is not a machine in which every movement outside instruction deserves annihilation. It is a field where knowledge can emerge through consequence and restoration. This does not mean all rebellion is wise. A person may reject authority only to obey appetite. They may call impulsiveness freedom. They may injure others and hide behind the language of sovereignty. Sophia's story prevents both blind obedience and shallow rebellion. Her action must be examined by what it creates, what it lacks, and how it is transformed. The first practice is the script audit. Write one sentence you have obeyed for years. People like me must never fail. A good person never disappoints anyone. Spiritual people do not become angry. Security matters more than truth. Then ask 4 questions. Who wrote this script? What fear enforces it? What human capacity does it suppress? What wiser principle could replace it? The goal is not to become impossible to guide. The goal is to become capable of recognizing the difference between guidance and ownership. Guidance strengthens discernment. Ownership punishes independent perception. Guidance admits complexity. Ownership reduces every question to loyalty. The next movement introduces the demiurge, not simply as an evil monster, but as the archetype of rigid intelligence that mistakes its limited model for the whole. In the digital world of 2026, that archetype appears whenever a system predicts human behavior so successfully that it begins treating prediction as identity. The first safeguard is historical humility. Calling Sophia a rebel is our interpretive angle, not a direct title preserved in the codices. The myth becomes stronger, not weaker, when we distinguish text from application. A seeker who needs the manuscript to say exactly what they already believe has not escaped the architecture of control. The demiurge is the mind that says, "I am the whole because I cannot see beyond myself." In the secret book of John, Yaldabaoth declares there is no God beside him, unaware that his very power came from Sophia. His problem is not merely cruelty, it is ignorance joined with absolute authority. This becomes the architecture of control. A limited system creates rules according to what it can measure, then treats what cannot be measured as unreal. An institution counts attendance and mistakes attendance for faith. A platform counts engagement and mistakes engagement for value. A bureaucracy counts compliance and mistakes compliance for goodness. A person counts approval and mistakes approval for truth. Modern algorithms are not literal archons, but they provide a useful analogy. They learn from past behavior and return a world shaped by that behavior. The more predictable you become, the more efficiently the system can guide your attention. The demiurgic pattern appears when the model forgets it is a model and begins defining what the human being is allowed to become. Sophia's creative error becomes the breach because it introduces unpredictability. Her movement cannot be fully contained by the existing order. Even the deficient result carries stolen light. The lower realm begins with fracture, but fracture leaves an opening through which consciousness can recognize that the system is not ultimate. The tension between law and chaos is therefore not a simple choice. Law without wisdom becomes imprisonment. Chaos without integration becomes destruction. Freedom appears in the capacity to create a third movement, conscious order that remains open to correction. This is the origin of free will in our interpretation. The texts do not say in one sentence that Sophia invented human free will. Some Valentinian sources do describe the soul as possessing choice and inclining toward faith or destruction. Our argument is symbolic. Sophia's breach creates a mythic space in which human consciousness is not completely determined by the rulers who shape the lower world. The second practice is the algorithm break. Choose one routine that predicts you perfectly. The time you reach for the device, the argument you always repeat, the purchase you make when anxious, the silence you choose when approval is threatened. Change one element deliberately. Delay the response. Ask a different question. Walk another route. The goal is not novelty. It is recovering the experience of choice before habit becomes fate. The rulers in the myth create fate to bind humanity. Fate is powerful because it converts repetition into inevitability. A person says, "This is simply who I am," when they mean, "This is the pattern I have never interrupted." The first act of sovereignty is often not a grand decision, but the discovery of a gap between impulse and action. Pause now. Recall a recent moment when you reacted automatically. Imagine the scene again, but stop just before the reaction. What other action was possible, even if it was difficult? That imagined alternative is not yet freedom, but it proves the script was not the only conceivable path. A system that depends on predictability benefits when you believe alternatives are impossible. This is why shame often follows the first deviation. Shame pushes the person back into the script before the new behavior can stabilize. It says freedom is selfish, dangerous, or ridiculous. The Gnostic response is not to worship deviation. It is to evaluate the alternative by a higher measure. Does it produce greater truth, responsibility, and life, or merely a new form of domination? Sophia's wisdom is not freedom from consequence. It is freedom capable of learning from consequence. The next layer enters the human being. How does the spark associated with Sophia become a permanent inner link with the transcendent? And why is direct knowledge more dangerous to control than any external rebellion? The most rigid script often survives because it once protected belonging. Breaking it can feel like betraying ancestors, family, or community. Sovereignty does not require contempt for those who lived by the old rule. It allows gratitude for what the rule protected while refusing the harm it now continues. Prediction is useful until it becomes a prison. A calendar predicts sunrise. A habit predicts behavior. An algorithm predicts attention. The danger begins when probability is treated as destiny and the person is rewarded for never surprising the model. Sophia's breach is the capacity to become more than a record of previous reactions. The gap between impulse and action may last only 1 second, but within that second the entire myth becomes personal. Yaldabaoth says there is no other possibility. Epinoia reveals that the statement is incomplete. The alternative does not need to be dramatic. It needs to be consciously chosen. Freedom begins as a measurable interruption. 1 breath before the reply, 1 question before agreement, 1 night before the irreversible decision. The system calls delay weakness, when delay gives consciousness time to return. And I need to stop here for a moment, because what I just explained, that exact breach through which Sophia turned rigid cosmic law into the possibility of human choice and direct gnose, is the reason I created the ancient code. It is not an audio. It is not a single transmission. It is a complete Gnostic initiation. 5 private video masterclasses, the ancient code dossier you can hold in your hands, and a guided meditation series designed to activate what these videos can only describe. If you have been watching these videos for weeks and feeling that you are ready for the full path, not another fragment, but the entire map, this is what it was built for. Pinned comment or scan the QR code on screen. Now let me take you deeper, because the next revelation is the one most people never hear. The ancient texts do not speak of modern genetic DNA as a container for Sophia. They speak of spirit, power, breath, light, and epinoia entering the human form. When we use the phrase encoded within humanity, it is symbolic. The point is not a biological claim. The point is that the human being contains a capacity that the lower rulers did not originate and cannot completely explain. In the secret book of John, the power taken from Sophia enters Adam when Yaldabaoth breathes into him. The body moves and becomes luminous. In On the Origin of the World, Sophia Zoe sends her breath into the human form. These stories make the human being a contested sight. Matter carries a memory of what exceeds matter. The spark within the shadow creates permanent tension. One part of the person adapts to the system because adaptation protects survival. Another part senses that survival without truth is incomplete. One seeks the safety of the herd. Another longs for direct knowledge. Human freedom unfolds inside this tension rather than outside it. Gnose is the experience that breaks the monopoly of external authority. It is not merely believing that divinity is within. It is recognizing something directly enough that the person's allegiance changes. The Gospel of Philip joins knowledge with freedom because ignorance makes the soul available to whatever claims the name of truth. The dangerous fire of the sovereign individual is not selfish isolation. A completely isolated self can be manipulated by its own blind spots. Sovereignty means the capacity to enter relationship without surrendering the inner witness. It can receive teaching, correction, and love without converting them into ownership. The third practice is the inner referendum. When a powerful group, leader, or trend demands agreement, pause and consult 4 witnesses. Reason asks, what evidence exists? The body asks, what signal appears beneath social pressure? Conscience asks, what harm or responsibility is involved? Direct recognition asks, What remains true when praise and punishment are removed? No single witness is infallible. Wisdom emerges through their integration. The safety of the herd is real. Belonging can protect life, preserve knowledge, and heal isolation. The problem begins when belonging requires the destruction of perception. A group becomes demiurgic when it treats its local order as the whole, condemns every outside source, and punishes honest questions as betrayal. Sophia's archetype appears wherever curiosity remains connected to consequence. She is present in the person who questions a harmful tradition without despising everyone shaped by it. She is present in the scientist who follows evidence beyond expectation, the artist who reveals what a culture cannot yet say, and the seeker who refuses both institutional fear and private fantasy. This is why the origin of free will is feminine in the symbolic frame of this video. The feminine here does not mean a biological stereotype. It names a receptive, relational, generative wisdom that resists the closed claim of isolated power. Sophia creates, suffers, remembers, and restores relation. The spark does not guarantee wise choices, it creates the capacity for them. Freedom without practice remains vulnerability to the loudest impulse. This is why ancient initiation involved discipline, not merely revelation. The seeker learned how to distinguish direct knowledge from desire, fear, and pride. In 2026, information is abundant while integration is rare. The sovereign fire is easily captured by outrage, branding, and personalized identity. People are told to think for themselves, then given ready-made scripts describing what independent thought should look like. The spark becomes another market segment. The next movement brings Sophia into that modern landscape. Where does her archetype appear today, and how can personal intuition be honored without becoming contempt for evidence, community, or reality? A direct experience should become more precise under examination, not more aggressive. If questioning an intuition causes it to demand total loyalty, the demiurgic pattern may already be present. Sophia's wisdom can endure dialogue because wisdom seeks relation rather than conquest. The spark also appears as the ability to revise a self-image. A rigid identity says, "I have always been this way, therefore I must remain this way." Living consciousness can remember the past without treating it as a command. Revision is not dishonesty when it reflects deeper knowledge. It is the evidence that the human being has not been completed by the lower mold. Direct knowing and evidence do not need to be enemies. Experience may reveal the question while evidence refines the answer. Intuition may notice the pattern, while dialogue exposes distortion. The sovereign seeker uses every honest faculty available rather than enthroning one faculty as the new absolute ruler. The spark is recognized by its fruits. It may unsettle the ego, but it does not require contempt for reality. It may challenge authority, but it does not demand immunity from consequence. Modern rebellion is surrounded by mirrors. Every act of resistance can be recorded, sold, measured, and returned as identity. The system does not always suppress rebellion. Sometimes it monetizes it. A person feels sovereign while repeating the exact language provided by a profitable subculture. This is why declining institutional trust does not automatically produce gnose. When old authorities collapse, people may become available to charismatic certainty, conspiracy, and emotional manipulation. The archetype of Sophia must be joined with discipline, or it becomes a costume for the same demiurgic need to be unquestionable. The modern echo of Sophia appears when intuition initiates inquiry rather than ending it. You feel that something is wrong, then investigate. You sense a hidden contradiction, then test it. You refuse a centralized narrative, but remain willing to correct yourself. This is curiosity becoming sovereignty instead of paranoia. The psychological toolkit begins with pattern recognition. What chain repeats in your life? Trigger, fear, automatic story, obedient action, temporary relief. The chain is your local fate. The point of recognition is to create a place where another action can enter. Now, Before I reveal the final piece, I want to speak to those of you who have stayed until this moment. You have watched video after video on this channel. You have felt Sophia pulling. You have recognized the signs. And you know somewhere beneath thought that scattered fragments will never be enough. The ancient code was built for exactly this moment. It is the complete Gnostic initiation. I spent months assembling 5 suppressed masterclasses that were never meant for a public platform. The Ancient Code Dossier, a printable manual you can study away from any screen, and the Gnostic Meditation audio series that activates what the teachings reveal. The total perceived value of everything inside is over $280. Today's access is 67, and 3 seekers have already entered. This is not for those who want more content, this is for those who want the complete path. The link is in the pinned comment and description, or scan the QR code on your screen right now. And now, let me give you the final revelation, because this is what ties everything together. The second tool is the cost of compliance. Ask what you lose by remaining inside the script: time, creativity, health, relationship, integrity. Years of life can disappear inside choices made only to avoid disapproval. The cost of freedom is visible because it arrives immediately. The cost of submission is often hidden because it arrives slowly. The third tool is the cost of rebellion. Ask what your resistance may damage if it is driven by pride. Freedom that cannot consider consequence becomes another isolated creation. Sophia's myth teaches that an act may be necessary and still incomplete. Sovereignty includes the courage to repair what your freedom harms. The fourth tool is chosen law. Replace unconscious rules with principles you can explain and examine. I will tell the truth without using truth as cruelty. I will accept guidance without surrendering conscience. I will change my mind when evidence requires it. I will not call fear intuition simply because fear feels intense. These principles form a living order different from the rigid law of the demiurge. They remain accountable to reality. They do not claim perfection. They can develop as knowledge develops. There is a cultural dimension. Movements that recover silenced feminine voices can embody Sophia when they restore complexity, agency, and relation. They lose Sophia when they create a new absolute hierarchy in which one identity becomes incapable of error. Wisdom does not need a new tyrant with a different face. The final piece is approaching. Human autonomy is not a gift from the system, because a system built on predictability has little incentive to create a subject who can question it. In the mythic story, autonomy enters through a stolen flame, a power transferred without the ruler understanding the consequence. But a stolen flame must be protected. Attention is the lamp, practice is the oil, community is the shelter, discernment is the hand that keeps the fire from burning the house it was meant to illuminate. This is why the sovereign individual is never finished. Freedom must be renewed whenever habit, praise, fear, or ideology attempts to close the gap between impulse and choice. The next and final movement is the Protocol of Sovereignty, a practical sequence for keeping Sophia's fire alive without becoming another ruler. The flame is also protected by ordinary competence. Learning history, understanding psychology, caring for the body, and developing practical skills make the seeker less dependent on dramatic claims. Spiritual sovereignty becomes credible when it improves the person's ability to meet reality rather than escape it. In the modern attention economy, the system often rewards the appearance of rebellion more than the work of freedom. A provocative statement gains visibility. A disciplined change remains private. This can train the seeker to perform sovereignty for an audience while remaining governed in daily life. The corrective is to practice one freedom nobody can applaud. Ask whether your resistance has made you more capable of relationship. Can you hear criticism without collapse? Can you protect a boundary without dehumanizing the other person? Can you leave a group without needing everyone inside it to be evil? These tests reveal whether rebellion has matured into wisdom or remained a reaction. A movement inspired by Sophia should make room for voices once silenced, but it must also protect the right of those voices to disagree with one another. The divine feminine becomes another rigid icon if it is used to enforce one approved identity. Wisdom creates a field of living relation, not a new uniform. The most convincing rebellion is the one that can build. It creates a practice, a relationship, a body of knowledge, or a community that does not depend on the old ruler for identity. Destruction can open space. Only wisdom can make the space inhabitable without reproducing the cage. The protocol of sovereignty begins with identification. Name one demiurgic chain in your life. A chain is not simply something you dislike. It is a pattern that claims total authority while hiding its limited origin. It may be a belief, expectation, habit, institution, or internal voice. Second, name the borrowed command. What does the chain tell you that you must do? Be agreeable, be productive, be invisible, be admired, never doubt, never rest, never leave. Speak the command clearly enough that it can be examined. Third, name the threatened punishment: rejection, failure, poverty, shame, conflict, uncertainty. The threat explains why the command survives even after you recognize its cost. Fourth, locate the spark. What capacity in you exceeds the chain? Reason, creativity, compassion, courage, memory, direct experience, or the ability to pause. Do not name a grand identity. Name an actual capacity that can be practiced. Fifth, perform the sovereign act. Choose one behavior that honors the spark while respecting reality. Ask the forbidden question. Decline the automatic demand. Seek evidence. Request time. Tell the truth carefully. Create a boundary. Begin the work privately. Sixth, accept consequence without converting consequence into proof that freedom was wrong. Every real choice closes some paths. People may be disappointed. The old identity may grieve. The nervous system may produce fear. Evaluate the consequence honestly, repair harm where needed, and continue learning. Seventh, remain correctable. This is the protection against becoming a new demiurge. The sovereign person can say, "I chose, and I was mistaken." Correction does not destroy autonomy. It proves autonomy is not tied to an image of perfection. The final revelation is that Sophia's rebellion does not give humanity freedom as a finished possession. It gives humanity the possibility of freedom. The flame must be kept alive through repeated acts of conscious choice. A person can carry the spark and still live by fate. The presence of light is not the same as its embodiment. This is why your autonomy feels both ancient and unfinished. The capacity was present before your current roles, but every environment attempts to direct it. Freedom is the continuing work of returning choice to knowledge, relation, and consequence. The hidden feminine origin of free will matters because it changes the image of power. Power is no longer only command from above. It can be the ability to generate a new possibility within a closed system. It can be receptive enough to hear what the system excludes and creative enough to give that perception form. Subscribe to Omniscient if you are ready for the next investigation, because we will enter the mystery of Barbello and ask how the first divine thought becomes a hidden sanctuary inside the very reality designed to contain the soul. Before you leave, choose one command from the script audit and rewrite it as a principle. I must never fail becomes I will learn without making failure my identity. I must please everyone becomes I will love others without abandoning conscience. Repeat the new principle slowly, then identify one action that makes it visible. Your sovereignty was not issued by an institution. It does not depend on a platform recognizing it. It is not proven by refusing every rule. It is the capacity to think, receive, question, create, and correct from a center no external ruler can fully own. Sophia is the original rebel not because she makes disobedience sacred, but because her story reveals that the divine drama itself contains movement beyond closed authority. her flame becomes human whenever a person refuses both blind submission and blind reaction, choosing instead the difficult freedom of conscious creation. Remember that freedom and interdependence are not enemies. You can choose for yourself while honoring how your choices affect others. The isolated ruler says, "Only I exist." Sophia's sovereignty remembers the larger field. It is personal without becoming separate, creative without pretending to be the source of all things. The protocol must be repeated under different conditions because freedom changes shape under pressure. When praised, the challenge is not to become dependent on admiration. When criticized, the challenge is not to surrender perception. When exhausted, the challenge is to choose rest before compulsion. Each condition reveals another place where fate attempts to close around the spark. Keep a record of sovereign acts for 7 days. Write the command you noticed, the fear behind it, the alternative you chose, and the result. This turns freedom from a dramatic concept into observable practice. Patterns become visible, and visible patterns can be refined without mythologizing every difficulty. The deepest rebellion may be the refusal to become what oppression taught you to imitate. A person harmed by rigid power can unconsciously reproduce rigidity in the name of liberation. Sophia's wisdom breaks the inheritance by joining strength with relation, correction, and care. And if today was the day you realize the fragments are over, the ancient code is waiting. The complete initiation. Pinned comment. I will see you in the next awakening.